Well, hello world and whoever wants to listen. My name is JT Westbury. I'm a huge Florida State fan, a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and I've decided I'm going to make my own podcast. I'm just going to dive right into it, tell you a little bit about myself. I want to go ahead and start this podcast before free agency started, because that's the first big thing of the off season. Then you go draft, and then you start the season. You got training camp, and you got preseason, and so on and so forth. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and I really thought I would like to do it. It's just a habit or a hobby and a passion. So I hope you guys like it, and even if you don't, I still like doing it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and jump into the Bucs free agents this year. The first one is Goster Sherlis, right tackle. Obviously, his best years are behind him. You've seen what happened in that Dallas game. He almost single-handedly lost it for us, more than that defensive end won it for Dallas. Even though DeMar Dotson signed a 4-year deal worth about $4.5 million, which is a little expensive for a hold machine in my opinion, but Goster Sherlis' spot might be safe as a decent backup, but we will see. Chris Conte, he's made some plays, but he almost as many bonehead mistakes. And to be honest with you, Keith Tandy came on late and showed instincts to maybe make this an easy decision for the Bucs. Although he's sitting at $3.0 million, Tandy, Conte, and a safety in the draft could still be possible. But I'm still leaning more towards Conte's probably out the door. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting because Will Golston, a player who hadn't had much production in Tampa his first 4 years, he's starting to come on now, and not so much for his pass rushing skills, but for his run stopping. And the last 2 games I believe he was out, you could definitely tell who was missing. And they ran it all over us whenever they wanted. I don't think he's going to get starter money anywhere else. I think he's going to stay with Tampa Bay as, a role player like he's been, but he's been a very good role player, and I think he should stick with the team that he's built so much continuity with and keep that ball rolling. Really, the next big one is Mike Glennon, and to be honest with you, what a ride it's been for Mike. Last year, they could have, I think, traded him for some draft picks, and now they're almost going to have to let him go for no reason. Obviously, they're not going to re-sign him. I believe they're going to keep Ryan Griffin as their backup. But I actually really didn't think that Mike Glennon was too bad. He became kind of a check-down Charlie to me, when he was playing. But he was keeping us in games, and since Winston's been drafted, it's felt nice to know we had a decent backup. But trade rumors have surfaced and swirled since he might be gone to someone, and for draft picks, that's out of the question. Our next one we got is Joe Hawley. Only 1 year ago, Pro Football Focus had Joe Hawley as the number 1 center that hadn't given up a sack. And of course, second on that list was Jeremy Zutaw, go figure. The Bucs love just letting good players go. But this year, he got pushed around, and there was a word of moving Marpet to center, so that might be bye-bye for Evan Smith. So we'll see how that works out. But I actually don't think Joe Hawley would mind being a backup. He wants to stay with this team. He loves this team. Obviously, he's young. He's still pretty young. I believe he's only 28. But, Dirk Cutter isn't going to let players stick around that's hurting his team. He's already proved that. He's not afraid. He's not afraid to make the big decisions. The next free agent is a defensive tackle named John Hughes. He didn't fill in too often, but defensive tackle depth for the Bucs has been an off-season need for it seems like 10 years now. I think the only defensive tackle we've drafted, and I can't even remember exactly when year he was drafted, was Akeem Spence. It's got to be at least 4 years ago. And there's no way that you just let a defensive tackle walk when you don't have anybody behind him. So we're going to see how that works out, at least to be a camp body. To round out the top free agents, in my opinion, for us, definitely Bradley McDougald played the second half of the season like a serious starter. I think his spot is safe. He's a player who's gotten more and more productive throughout his years in Tampa, and he's finally playing like the safety they thought he would play like. So I think his position is locked up. Akeem Smith, like I just said, defensive tackle depth is too thin unless they decide to address it through the draft. Defensive tackle isn't as abundant in this year's draft as it was the previous years. But I think Akeem Smith stays. I don't think he gets much money anywhere else. So I'd like to see how Jason Light handles that. Russell Shepard and Josh Robinson, both special teams aces. Our special teams played lights out this year. Probably one of the best units in the whole league. I have no doubt in my mind that they're both going to be back. Jacquizz Rodgers, I don't see why they wouldn't. Doug's already gone the first 3 games of the season. Charles Sims can't stay healthy. And, we might draft a running back. We might not. We might just let Doug Martin come back. Either way, we still owe him. They haven't said whether they're going to pay him the $7 million or not. Once he got hit with that drug suspension, that voided the $7 million if they don't want to pay it to him. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Vincent Jackson. This is what sucks because he's most likely done as a Buccaneer. And if only Winston had him in his prime, with Mike Evans and Austin Seferian-Jenkins like they wanted, to think about what our offense could be. After that, we have some restricted free agents. We only have 3, and of course these are players whose contracts have expired with at least 3 seasons with one team. He receives an offer from his club, and this player can bargain with other teams. If he accepts the offer, the team has 5 days to make up their mind to retain him or match the offer. If they don't think the player is worth what he's going for from the other team, they let him walk in return for draft picks corresponding to what round he was. Now, of course, we don't get draft picks if he was undrafted. We have 3 notables, but 2 I feel worth mentioning. Ryan Griffin's a backup, and like I said, I think Mike Glennon is gone. And the other is Jacquizz Smith. If he can stay healthy, we have a pretty solid defensive end rotation that we can work with. Of course, Noah Spence played through a shoulder injury all year long, and he managed to put up 5.5 sacks and a couple forced fumbles, and he made strides as a run blocker also. So it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out. This next category is exclusive rights free agents, and boy, do we have a lot of players who have contributed a lot during the past couple seasons that I think the Bucs are definitely going to keep. The first I will mention is Jude Ajay Barima. Mostly a nickel corner. He played outside his rookie year, and he didn't play bad, but he didn't play great. I think his spot is nickel, and Alteron Werner might be gone, he was playing corner or nickel too. And I don't think they're going to keep Javian Elliott and Alteron and Ajay Barima. I just don't see it. But he had a suspension, so we're going to see how that works out. That should be a nice competition to watch in training camp. Cameron Brate, Winston's favorite target other than Mike Evans. He will return, I'm sure, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs use another draft pick on a tight end for weapons and a 2 tight end set. If ASJ didn't ruin his career, there's no telling how the offense could have looked. He also tied for the league lead among tight ends with 8 touchdowns. That is pretty good for an undrafted free agent out of Harvard, and the Saints did not want to let him go. We're lucky we got him back. The next one is Adam Humphries. Is he as quick as Julian Edelman? I don't think so, maybe not. But as productive as a slot receiver who is more of a Cole Beasley, I'm 100% he stays. He worked his tail off, and Dirk loves him, so I'm absolutely sure he's not going anywhere. Adarius Glanton, as far as linebacker depth goes, I think he's a training camp body unless someone can beat him out. Also, Howard Jones, this is another guy, defensive end that showed a lot of promise, just can't stay on the field. He's shown flashes, but injuries might let him walk. Now, this might just be a pipe dream, and I might just be, an over-ecstatic Bucs fan looking at all these free agents and looking at how much cap room we have to play with. But General Manager Jason Light has learned his lesson through free agency. He's brought in good, pretty cheap players, very productive guys, good characteristic guys. But I'm looking at a couple guys on here that I think Jason might go at. And the first one is Dontari Poe from the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't believe that they can afford to keep him and Eric Berry. They're going to have to franchise tag one. And Kansas City's D-line is already stacked without Dontari Poe. I believe they won't miss a beat. Could you imagine finally having somebody next to Gerald McCoy? So he's not getting double-teamed, Dontari's not getting double-teamed, and it's going to free up off the edges. It's going to be great, and I would love to see it. K'Wan Short was another one. Doesn't look like he's going to leave. They do not want to let another big-time player go like they did Josh Norman. The defense already took a hit last year because of it, and you could see it. Clearly you could see it, but hey, we can all dream. Now this is my all-time favorite because everybody thinks the Bucs are going to draft a wide receiver in the first round. I would love to see him draft a tight end, O.J. Howard. I've seen him mocked to us plenty of times. I think no doubt about it, it's going to be a weapons and maybe a defensive tackle type draft for us. We might draft safety. You know, you never know how it's going to turn out with Jason Light. But Alshon Jeffrey, does he want to stay in Chicago and make a lot of money, or does he want to come catch balls from Jameis and across the field from Mike Evans? He's going to get so many opportunities. Mike Evans is going to get so many opportunities. Cameron Brate, who knows, O.J. Howard and Adam Humphries all playing at the same field. Could you imagine? This could also be like what I was saying, how they wanted Vincent Jackson in his prime with Winston to pair with Evans. Well, Alshon Jeffrey is not 6'5". He might be 6'4", but he's still not that far off. This could be what they wanted. The Bears are nowhere close to a championship. The Bucs are knocking on the door. Come to Tampa, get paid with Mike, and you can't double team them both. Well, that's going to do it for my first podcast. I just wanted to kind of get my feet wet, see how I was going to approach this. I think I did a pretty good job across the board of nailing who I think is going to leave and who I think is going to stay. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try to have another episode out after free agency, and then I'm going to have an episode out during the combine pre-draft, and then we're going to get this ball rolling. I'm going to start doing this maybe once or twice a week after that, doing game previews, and then I'm going to be doing game reviews. And I can't wait to get started. I hope you guys like it. And please subscribe and share and tell your friends. And please, I know I stuttered a little bit, but it's my first time. Let me know how I did. Tell me what you think I could do to improve. And I hope you guys enjoy. See you later.